You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Businessman there, drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Conservative Commando's radio show with Anna Little and J.D. Manier. J.D., welcome to Conservative Commandos.
It's great to be with you again, Anna. It's always a privilege and so much fun when we get together.
It certainly is. And, you know, we do have this flagship station in Philadelphia, WNJC 1360. We're so grateful to be in the Philly area. And we are around the world on the Internet with our partners, American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7. As producer Rick Trader would say, we are everywhere. Isn't that right, J.D.?
And growing. Can you get more than everywhere? Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah. Well, J.D., you have the honor of being from the great state of Indiana, and I believe it's your former governor who is now Vice President Mike Pence. Do I have that right?
Yes, and he did something very historic just a few moments ago. And Betsy DeVos narrowly was confirmed, but, you know, a win is a win. If you can win by 40 points or 1 point, she was confirmed because of the Vice President Pence casting the tiebreaker vote, and that now makes her the education secretary for Donald Trump.
Well, thank goodness, because...
Well, I just want to point out only 6 cabinet members have been confirmed so far, Anna.
That's right. And, you know, Betsy DeVos is so very important, J.D., because, you know, the inner city kids across this nation are really trapped. They are stuck in a school that is based on their location, and the education that they're receiving is below what their needs are in order to become what they are meant to be, to reach their full potential. So Betsy DeVos was a very, very important appointee, and I'm so glad that we've gotten her through against the obstruction of the Democrats.
Well, and this is the game they're playing, it so appears. They're taking the full 30 hours, staying up all night, and they're calling it debate time before they come to cloture, and they're trying to peel off Republicans. And now they're claiming that all the rest of the nominees for Trump are not going to get a single vote. I mean, that's unprecedented. Think how quickly they voted in President Obama's nominees once he was elected president and inaugurated. It's just a case of at their level, they're doing all kinds of stops, gaps, everything to beat the opposition party. Down at the lower level, I'm hearing Anna, and I'm seeing anarchy. I'm seeing George Soros-funded people show up at some of our friends who are Republicans in the House of Representatives. They've never, when they come back and have their town halls, they've never seen so many left-wingers there camped out and doing everything they can to stop Donald Trump. It is unprecedented times.
Indeed it is. And, you know, I think with regard to those senators that are refusing to show up to work, and once they get to work, they are refusing to cast a vote on the merits or the qualifications of these cabinet members, I believe they are in contempt of the body in which they sit, and I believe that they are also in contempt of we the people, for whom they need to be accountable and for whom they work and whose dollar pays their salary. I think we really need to examine this, J.D., because we can't let them get away with this kind of politics-first behavior. They're there to serve we the people. They're not there for their own political agendas. And if the other team won, so be it. Move on, get the job done, and do your job with integrity. And that's not what's going on. These Democrats, these obstructionist Democrats, are just plain not being, they are not doing their job, and they are not being respectful of the positions in which they're serving.
Well, we've ran into this back in my home state of Indiana in sessions past. The Republicans would have a supermajority at the State House. And so the Democrats would leave at the start of the session and go to Illinois, all of them. And they said, you can't have a quorum. You cannot, therefore, pass any laws. And this happened a couple sessions in a row, and finally they got wise down at the State House, and they said, we're going to fine you, $500 a day, and then these people started to come back. But it took extraordinary measures for the Democrats to come back. And I'm seeing that kind of thing happen up there, where the Senate parliamentarian has to tell it was Orrin Hatch last week. I've looked at the rules, and it's okay. Just let the Republicans vote, and we'll get these people out of committee and to the Senate floor. But extraordinary stuff going on. But it's nothing that you would look at and say is good government. There's nothing that would, when you read civics, when they used to teach civics, that you could say this is the model for all of us when we're voted in to be leaders in Washington, how we should behave. What say you, Anna? Because these are uncharted waters, really.
Well, they are, but I think we're also at a crossroads of sorts, JD. Just because the waters are uncharted doesn't mean we don't get to steer the ship. I mean, we're the people. We're in charge. If we don't like what we see going on down there, we need to make a change. And the way you make that change in between elections is you make your voice heard. And if your representative isn't representing you, you let them know that. And then you call around them to the switchboard and you talk to the senators that you're watching on C-SPAN or you're hearing about on Fox or you're listening to about on the news. And then you state what you want them to do and be as vocal as you can be. And I think having elected Donald Trump president, we the people are in the majority and we know how to run this government. So we just need to stand up and do it.
Amen. And, I like the pace that Donald Trump has brought out. He's had leaders from the tech industry. He every morning he's got leaders. He's had from the black community last week. He's had leaders from the automakers and so many times. Should be soon bringing in the health insurance leaders. But this morning I was encouraged. He had U.S. sheriffs all across the country in for a big powwow. And, data from the U.S. Sheriff's Office in 2015, this is a segue into some stuff I think we'll talk about concerning the travel ban. But the U.S. Sheriff said in 2015 that 25 Americans are killed each day by illegal immigrants. That amounts to over 9,000 people a year. And so now we have this travel ban. And this Judge Robard from Washington told some whopping lies last week, and he never referenced the law. He just simply said, well, I think I can read the mind of Donald Trump, and he said there's never been any attacks, terrorist attacks, or any arrests since 9/11 in 2001 from these countries, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, and Libya. Well, Anna, that is just patently false. What happened last October with the Ohio State knifing and car attack that injured 11 people. There was an Iraqi refugee living in Texas also back last fall, and he was tried and he was attempting to provide support to ISIS, and he was arrested. We could go on and on. Obama enacted a 6-month ban on refugees from Iraq in 2011. And after that, it was revealed 2 Iraqi Muslims who resettled in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Now we're talking about stuff that was talked about this week. Well, they were sending weapons and cash to Al-Qaeda in Iraq. They were arrested, tried, and convicted. There's many instances of this, and I don't know where the judge got his data, but it's just patently false. And it's so if it's not lies, if it's not liberal judges, it's all these protests. I mean, my wife and I have been talking about is horrible in Berkeley and other college campuses. The First Amendment does not mean you can go out and trash property and intimidate people. That's not what the First Amendment's all about. Anna, we just have another minute, but you got me going. These are amazing times.
Absolutely. And, I think that protesting is within the First Amendment. Rioting is not. And that's the difference. We need to call rioting what it is. We need to show it as criminal behavior, and people need to cut it out. And with that, I think I'm going to take us to our first break. We are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .coms. I'm Anna Little, co-hosting today with J.D. Manier. John Forsythe, our silent John Forsythe, is on the boards in the studio, and we'll all be right back with you after this break.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, CCRS Network and ccrshow.com, or at 8 a.m., Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 11 p.m., highplanestalkradio.com. And now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. J.D. Manier, time flies when we get together. Why don't we go over the guests that we have for the show today?
Boy, we have a real nice lineup, and I want to say 3:35, we have Josh Siegel. He's the news editor for the Heritage Foundation's Daily Signal. He's going to talk about how Neil Gorsuch could help courts take power from unelected bureaucrats. It should be very interesting. One of the nominee, I think, Anna, that was so pertinent that when polled, almost 70% of Republican voters said that was the number one issue, the Supreme Court. Look forward to having Josh Siegel on then. At 4:05, we've got Ted Bromond, and he's a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation's Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom. And he's going to talk about the Brexit. You know, supposedly this Brexit was just going to create World War III and just cause the Brits' economy to just spiral downward. Well, the last 7 months since Brexit was passed, it's been anything but that. It's improved their economic outlook. Things are looking very rosy, and we're looking forward to hear what Ted has to say. And then at 4:35, we have Claire Lopez, returning guest. She's the Vice President for Research and Analysis at the Center for Security Policy, a personal friend of mine. She's going to talk about Pakistan, Iran, last week there was the three brothers, Muslim brothers, who were removed from doing IT there on Capitol Hill for the U.S. House of Representatives, and she's got a lot of information on that. So we got a great show, I think, Anna, and it's always great working with you.
Well, I'm really looking forward to speaking with these guests, JD, and especially Josh Siegel about that judicial nominee, Neil Gorsuch. You know, it's very, very important that we get that Supreme Court balanced back the way it was when we had Antonin Scalia on the court. And I know that it's a bone of contention with those obstructionist Democrats because they felt they should have had the opportunity to replace Antonin Scalia. But I think it reinstitutes a balance in the court if we're able to get Judge Neil Gorsuch in. And I do think, again, this falls on we the people to make sure that we speak up and we let the senators know that we want him confirmed. And then, because if we don't speak up, then they're going to fall prey to the politics of the Democrats, and they're going to become concerned about whether or not their seats are in jeopardy next election cycle. So we've got to stand up for our senators, but more importantly, we've got to stand up for the Constitution and the balance of the Supreme Court.
Well, Anna, I know the Democrats all last year wanted the Senate to confirm, or at least have an up and down vote on Merrick Garland. But the fact of the matter is, over the last 70 years, we have not had, in the last year of a lame duck president, bring on any Supreme Court nominees. It's just not done. People look forward to their vote, and they know their vote count. And so it was something that I applaud Mitch McConnell for doing last year, holding off. But it was very much in keeping with the sentiments of the American people over the last 70 years.
I agree, and I think Joe Biden also, who is a Democrat, obviously, the former vice president, was very much in favor of this in a prior situation where he was saying, no, it's an election year. The people are going to have an opportunity to speak in November. No Supreme Court nominations between now and the election if it falls within that calendar year. And that is exactly what was done by the Republicans this past cycle. So I don't think there's anything unprecedented about what Republicans did. However, to the contrary, what obstructionist Democrats are doing right now is completely unprecedented. And I am reminded of Ben Franklin's retort to someone who asked him what form of government that we had been given back at the time of the Constitutional Convention. He said that we were given a representative democracy if we could keep it. Well, here's where we need to stand up, we the people. We need to show Ben Franklin, our founding father, and all of those present today that we can keep this representative democracy by we the people standing up and making our own voices heard. And with technology the way it is, right there in your hand, via your smartphone, you can interface with your elected representatives every day. And it's up to you to do so, especially given the fact that these obstructionist Democrats are putting politics ahead of your interests and at your expense.
Well, Anna, my wife Christine and I are worked out another commercial to play here on Conservative Commandos during the week, and it urges, and we'll point out again, and there'll be the Capitol switchboard phone number will be in that commercial when it rolls out this week. But we urge people to vote and their conscience, and do that by calling the Capitol switchboard and telling their U.S. senators to get on the stick, stop the obstructionism, show up. Like you said earlier in the show, show up and do your job, and then we urge them to bring on these nominees, especially Neil Gorsuch.
Yeah, and you've made the point, too, that this president was elected by our democratic election process, and he deserves to have his cabinet. It is disrespectful to him as the president of the United States and the leader of the free world for obstructionist Democrats to put their politics first and deny him the cabinet to do the job that we the people elected him to do. And it's a kick in the teeth to we the people. These obstructionist Democrats have fooled themselves into thinking that they still know better than we do. Even though we took back the House, we took back the Senate, and now we've taken back the White House, they are still in denial, and they still feel elite, and they still think they know better than you and I. And who better to set them straight than we the people? And I think that's all we have left. We have to stand up and state to the obstructionist Democrats, you're wrong-headed, get out of our way, let us run our government.
Well, and you think about Neil Gorsuch, and he had a tremendous, was it open down vote? He was so competent when he was, remember the Senate has seen him before to set him on the courts out on the West in Colorado. So I think it was unanimous. He was either unanimous up and down vote, which means 100% of the Senate approved him. He has such a sterling reputation. And so now you're going to now have every Democrat vote against him, which includes many of these senators who were very much in favor of him last time. There's such hypocrisy on the left right now. And we just so glad to highlight that kind of stuff. Every day we're on the Conservative Commandos radio show, letting people know the facts, and the nation will be free, as Lincoln said. I guess we have about 1 minute, Anna, but I know you're an attorney, and a very accomplished one, and I think we've set today's show really kind of right up your alley, so to speak. We've got some great guests. I'll let you take us out today.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to speak with our guests, and I know that it's hard for me to leave that day job behind. So you will hear my comments, and certainly feel free to add your own. And I'm going to take us to the next break because you're going to interview our first guest when we come back from that. So let's get to it. So, listeners, we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .coms. I'm Anna Little, co-hosting today with J.D. Veneer, and we'll be right back with you after this break.
I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions. We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
If your health care has become a burden and you're worried about being stuck for another year, you have options. Liberty Health Share could be the solution to your problem. Open enrollment is here and could be your chance to free yourself from insurance. Take this opportunity and join Liberty Health Share. You can finally be in control and have freedom when it comes to your health care. Liberty Health Share offers an entirely open network, which means you choose your doctors and you choose your hospitals. Liberty Health Share offers freedom from insurance, meaning no tax-related penalties. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty Health Share today at 855-585-4237. That's 855 888-585-4237 or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos Radio Show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos Radio Show with J.D. Lanier and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network and CCRShow.com, or mornings at 8 a.m., Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 11 p.m., High Plains Talk Radio News.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. J.D. Lanier, our first guest is with us, and the honor of that introduction belongs to you. Take it away.
Well, Josh Siegel is the news editor of the Heritage Foundation's Daily Signal, and he's written a very interesting article, by the way, on Ronald Reagan's birthday yesterday, titled How Neil Gorsuch Could Help Courts Take Power from Unelected Bureaucrats. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show, Josh.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Please explain to our listeners the Chevron doctrine and how Trump's nominee, Neil Gorsuch, he could scale all this back. Explain that to us.
Yeah, so the Chevron doctrine is 33 years old, and it basically says, it's kind of wonky, but what it says is that courts, like the Supreme Court, should defer to an executive branch agency So, the EPA, an agency such as that, how they decide to interpret laws that are considered ambiguous that are passed by Congress. So a lot of times Congress, when they write laws, they don't always do it in a clear manner, and it's up to interpretation from the agencies on like how to actually. And the agencies are obviously tasked with carrying it out on what to do. And so basically, Chevron really leans heavily to give the agencies that deference where they will get more of a say than the courts themselves. And actually, at the time when this the Supreme Court kind of allowed this Chevron deference in 1984, it was something that conservatives were supportive of, and that the context was around President Ronald Reagan's EPA, and they were trying to actually interpret the Clean Air Act in a way that would allow the Chevron Oil Company to kind of emit more pollutants. And what ended up happening is kind of like over the years, conservatives especially got upset with Chevron in the Obama administration, where they felt like they were really, that Obama was using his executive agencies to impose, regulations, EPA, Obamacare, laws and regulations that they felt like stretched the boundaries of what was written into the law. So with Gorsuch, he's someone who is, it's always kind of hard to predict exactly where judges are on issues because they don't always have a great background in all the issues, but he's someone who has spoken really clearly on Chevron, and in a case last year that was unrelated, it was an immigration case. He actually wrote a concurring opinion that was 22 pages, which is very long, where he just basically, he says that Chevron permits executive bureaucracies to swallow huge amounts of core judicial and legislative power. He says maybe it's time to face the behemoth. So clearly he thinks Chevron has kind of gotten out of control in allowing agencies to have too much power. And, there's people who are against Chevron who think that he could be key in having the Supreme Court take another look at Chevron to either overturn it or at least weaken the standard to make it more difficult, so where agencies would have to be more convincing that, yes, like this is our interpretation and this is why it's right, rather than just kind of like accepting at face value that the agencies are right, which is how it is now.
Well, Josh, it sounds to me like Gorsuch is basically saying, you know what? We're judges. We probably can interpret the law and the constitutional limits of a law better than unelected bureaucrats. In essence, is that what he's saying? And because of that, do you think that up on Capitol Hill, members of Congress might do a better job of due diligence and add more clarity when they draft these policies?
Yeah, exactly. I think he's pretty clear in that he's saying that he thinks judges have obviously agency employees have expertise, but depending on the party that's in power, it would make sense that those employees of the agencies are more, are coming from the perspective of the party that's in power. So, the observers of Chevron, those who are kind of non-biased about it, point to the fact that, what's challenging about it is that depending on the party in power, like they can interpret a regulation completely differently and be given the authority to take it wherever they want. So it's almost like the laws and regulations are just dressed. They say that those changes, which can just come by how the party in power is interpreting it, could really cause a lot of chaos in the economy and just kind of in how things work. So they, judges would obviously serve longer terms, their lifetime. So they would, be able to make it clear where they are on a certain regulation or rule, and it would just stay like that. So that would provide more consistency. In
a given year, Congress will maybe pass 250 laws. but unelected bureaucrats will put out 10 times that many rules and regulations in the same year. So could you explain to our listeners now how Gorsuch, in his own way, he's really advocating for a much better balance, isn't he, between the branches?
Yeah, right, exactly. He's calling for separation of powers to be really clear, and I think what's interesting for sure is in a part of this that a lot of people are noticing is that, you know, what Gorsuch's his view on this would basically, you know, limit the authority of the executive branch and bring that more to the judicial and legislative branches. And you know, it's just an interesting time where Republicans are in control of all levers of government. You have the Trump administration coming in and already acting pretty aggressively. You know, Democrats already alleging that Trump is behaving in a way that Obama did with his use of executive power. So, you know, you have some conservatives, like I interviewed a lawmaker named John Ratcliffe, who's out of Texas, and he has legislation that passed the House, actually, that would essentially tell the court, like, we don't want you to use Chevron anymore, and would require them not to. It's undetermined how the Senate would rule on that law, but what Ratcliffe said was that he was almost taunting Democrats in saying, like, hey, if you're afraid of President Trump overreaching, you know, you should support ending Chevron, and this is the exact tool you would need to restore your legislative powers to be that check on the executive branch. So it's really interesting, like, political dynamics. And what conservatives say is that, I mean, yes, it might seem like overturning Chevron would kind of like hamstring their president, but it's about taking more of a long-term view, and that, I mean, it's more important to be consistent in the Constitution and how you view the separation of powers than basing how you view that issue on if the president's in power who happens to be of your party.
But we only have about one more minute before we come up on a commercial break. But the REINS Act comes to my mind. Could you tell our audience a little bit about how that could require Congress to have up or down vote and rein in on these new regulations? Can you speak about that?
Yeah. So the this Separation of Powers Restoration Act, which is the Chevron-related legislation, was part of a package of regulatory bills that the House passed in January, and one of those is the REINS Act, and that would require an up and down vote on regulations. So, yeah, I mean, clearly you're seeing Congress overall with what they're doing so far in the regulatory arena, trying to bring the separation of what they view as the separation of powers is not being followed, and that they believe that Congress should work in step with the executive branch on important regulations. And so from all accounts, I know President Trump has said he wants to work with Republicans on these issues. It'll be interesting to see, once he kind of gets his feet wet more, and if he likes using executive authority, if he still maintains that wanting to work with Republicans on these issues. But so far you're seeing unity there, so we'll have to see what happens. But those are still making their way through the Senate, which obviously operates much slower. So the REINS Act is not yet law.
Well, thank you so much, John. We are coming up on this commercial break, and just hold with us just a couple minutes. And my host, Anna Little, I think, has got some questions for you. But this is J.D. Manier and Anna Little coming to you live from the Concerted Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Menier and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and ccrshow.com, or mornings at 8 a.m., Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 11 p.m., High Plains Talk Radio News.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. We have been speaking with our special guest, Josh Siegel, about the recent U.S. Supreme Court nominee who has been presented by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and that nominee is Neil Gorsuch, and how his view of the court may very well balance things and keep government perhaps a bit in check. Josh, I want to thank you so much for holding through that break. We do appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
So, Josh, I was listening to your interview with J.D., and I don't mean to dominate here, but I did want to ask a couple of questions. You know, I'm an attorney by day and a radio talk show host also off and on. So in my day job as an attorney, I realize that very often we trust the judge to look at things more neutrally. I'll go in representing one party in a civil suit, and another attorney will have the job of representing the other party. And very often the truth is somewhere in the middle. Advocacy obviously takes the truth and applies it to a particular agenda or a particular goal. The judge sits in the middle between those two agendas and then tries to figure out what the law, as applied to the facts, ought to be. And I think that's what Judge Gorsuch was trying to do with regard to the Chevron case. Is that your opinion as well?
I didn't hear you great. It was kind of breaking up, but you're essentially saying...
Oh, I'm sorry. It might be a
Gorsuch,
connection.
No worries, sir. I mean, you're saying would he take a neutral view of these issues? I just didn't hear you great.
Right. Well, the idea that I have is that perhaps Neil Gorsuch, in the case of the Chevron, revisiting Chevron in that immigration case as you were discussing, he may very well be seeing that these agencies might have an agenda and that the judge might be more neutral and looking at the application of the law. Do you think that's true?
No, exactly. I think, he doesn't say that, but I think he hints at it in saying that Chevron permits executive bureaucracies to swallow huge amounts of core judicial and legislative power, and that basically that it's hard to, as he puts it, it's hard to square that with the Constitution, how the framers designed it. So clearly he thinks there's too much power invested in the executive branch, and I think, his worry there is that clearly there's just more politics there, and he worries that subject to the political winds, that's how regulations and laws will be interpreted, and that's a dangerous thing for democracy.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, and I that's why I believe this nominee has my support. But, I want to ask you another question. It seems to me that in his acceptance of the nomination, Neil Gorsuch actually said something very important, and that was that if a judge likes all the decisions he has to make, then there's something wrong with the way he's doing his job. Meaning that a judge's job is not to sit there and impose his own will, but rather to look at the law and the facts in front of him and to apply that law. And if he isn't unhappy with that application once in a while, then he should question whether he's doing his job properly. What are your thoughts with regard to that?
Yeah, I think clearly there's some conservatives who think that some justices in recent rulings have taken more of a kind of a liberal view of the Constitution, that it's an evolving document, and that they're inserting their personal beliefs into what the law says. And clearly Gorsuch has been described by people who've worked with him, and if you read his opinions, that he's a textualist. He's someone who reads the law as it is, and he's clearly a conservative guy, but I don't think he would. As people have told me when I was working on this Chevron story, he wouldn't get in the way of, if the Trump administration did happen to overreach or do something where the Supreme Court had to interpret an action that the administration took. I don't think he'd be someone who'd be afraid to say that, all because Trump is the president. So he's obviously conservative, but I think it's pretty clear from anyone who's worked with him, and based on the readings I've had of his decisions and his writings, that he's someone who is very much beholden to the Constitution more than anything.
And that's what saves us, right? That Constitution, that supreme law of the land, keeps everybody in line and it keeps our government working. JD, I want to turn it back to you at this point. I'm just so satisfied with this Neil Gorsuch. And Josh, I want to thank you for coming on the show to talk about him. JD?
Hey, Dad, you're welcome.
Hey, Josh, do you think over time what we've seen is Congress really has been abdicating their role? They've been writing more open-ended laws and more or less saying, here, executive agencies, you interpret this. We just want to show the American people that we did something. I've seen that. And Gorsuch could help turn the tide on that. Do you think so?
Yeah, I do. I think, especially if Congress is in lockstep here, even if the Supreme Court were to not, because experts I've talked to don't really think, even with Gorsuch, that there might not be the votes to just overturn Chevron. If the Senate were to pass this House legislation that I mentioned earlier, directing the court to not use Chevron and to just give more of a even-handed review based on how the judiciary views the rule or regulation, I think you'll see Congress naturally want to write better legislation. I think that's in their best interest, especially now that they know the judiciary would have that authority and be more empowered to say, no, this is no good. and not have to be beholden to the executive branch there. So yeah, I think clearly that's part of this, and I think, as Ratcliffe said, I mean, this is as much like this is a problem because of us. I mean, I think they're kind of, Congress is taking it on the ear and saying, like, this is our responsibility as well, and that's why we're putting forth this legislation, even at a time when we have a president who, seemingly we would have some more views of, but we're that concerned about this issue that we want to introduce this legislation and get back to judges having more authority.
Well, you're talking about Gorsuch. Think back of Ronald Reagan. We talked about his birthday was yesterday. But he nominated a very excellent conservative judge named Robert Bork. And the Democrats in the Senate, led by Ted Kennedy, just savaged him, and they ended up having to settle. He had to settle for Anthony Kennedy. We know how history has played out because of that. We just have a couple more minutes, but talk more about Neil Gorsuch as the next judge and the battle. I mean, this is a true battle going on there.
Yeah.
We need all hands on deck, so to speak, when these nominees get up before the Senate.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch what happens in Congress. We know Majority Leader McConnell has said he hopes to have Gorsuch seated by Easter recess, so in April. I think that clearly Democrats are not going to give up easy. I mean, they're going to try to fight this. I don't think Republicans want to change the filibuster rule if they don't have to. And, you're already seeing some speculation that maybe Democrats wait to the next pick that Trump gets. I mean, I think everyone expects that perhaps Justice Kennedy or Justice Ginsburg, I mean, there could be, others to retire, and that would give Trump the opportunity to because what this does with Gorsuch is really just put the court back to what it was, kind of status quo before Scalia died. So the next pick would really be the one that would swing the power of the court in what direction it goes. So I think, if I were to guess based on lawmakers I've talked to and people in the know, I do think you're going to see Republicans able to get the votes on this to not have to go to a filibuster, to not have to get rid of the filibuster. But, obviously hard to say. I mean, liberal groups are pressuring very hard. I mean, for this story on Chevron, I interviewed a left-leaning judicial group that was basically, Alliance for Justice, and they were saying that they are telling members to not use this, even though the Chevron issue where Gorsuch is on this would seemingly help Democrats in the short term. As I said, check Trump's power. They don't view that as a reason to support Gorsuch, and they had very strong, words against him and saying that, he's someone who wants to who wants to just rein in the executive so much that we want to have clean air, we want to have clean water. So, clearly they're not gung-ho about Gorsuch, but I just think they're going to have a hard time kind of making a compelling case to the American people to hold this up too long. So we'll have to see.
Well, Josh, we're coming up against the hard break. How can our listeners read your excellent work? I love that article, how Neil Gorsuch helps courts take power from the unelected bureaucrats. Blog and a website real quick for us.
Yeah, so we're at dailysignal.com, and if you are interested in reading more just on Gorsuch in general, we have plenty of coverage there. And if you're interested in reading my writing specifically, you just scroll to the bottom on the authors. There's a link to authors, and then you'll find me. I'm Josh Siegel, Siegel, and I'm the news editor here. And you could just click on my name, and you'll find an archive of my story.
Well, God bless you. Thanks so much for coming on the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Okay, thank you again for having me.
And we're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7.
but still, they say I'm nasty, but I...
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
If your health care has become a burden and you're worried about being stuck for another year, you have options. Liberty Health Share could be the solution to your problem. Open enrollment is here and could be your chance to free yourself from insurance. Take this opportunity and join Liberty Health Share. You can finally be in control and have freedom when it comes to your health care. Liberty Health Share offers an entirely open network, which means you choose your doctors and you choose your hospitals. Liberty Health Share offers freedom from insurance, meaning no tax-related penalties. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty Health Share today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237. Or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network and CCRShow.com, or mornings at 8 a.m., Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 11 p.m., High Plains Talk Radio News.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Well, J.D. Manier, our next guest is with us. Will you please introduce?
Well, Ted R. Broman is a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation's Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom. He's appeared and interviewed and been cited by the BBC News, CBS News, Fox News Channel, CNN, Fox Business Channel, PolitiFact, Radio Free Europe, the Christian Science Monitor, Time and Financial Times, among others. Welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show, Ted.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you and your listeners.
Loved your article here recently titled On Brexit, So Much Winning. It's 7 years old, or 7 months old, excuse me, right now. Tell our listeners more about how this Brexit vote has turned out.
Well, your listeners will recall that when the British voted to leave the European Union, which they did back on June 23rd, pretty much every wise person in the world said that the sky was going to fall in immediately and that within a few months the British would be living in caves and wearing animal skins. Well, in fact, exactly the reverse has happened. The British economy has boomed. It's the fastest growing economy in the G7 this year. Economic growth for next year, well, now for this year, 2017, has been revised up sharply several times. A whole series of big international firms from Apple, Google, and many others have made new commitments to invest in Europe. The city, which is the British equivalent of Wall Street, has turned around 180 degrees and has now decided that Brexit is actually good for the United Kingdom and good for the city. Of course, President Donald Trump has said very encouraging things about negotiating a free trade area with the British, which is an excellent idea. And just recently, the House of Commons voted 498 for to 116 against to give the government formal authority to go ahead and start the process of leaving the European Union. So the good news really is that there's no bad news. The political process in Britain is fully for Brexit. All of the skeptics have been routed, and all of the facts on the ground, economically, politically, and otherwise, indicate Brexit's going to be a tremendous success.
Ted, do you see this movement towards self-governance going to spread in Europe? And do you think the EU is on the road to crumbling and being eliminated?
You know, I really hope it spreads. I think there are some very successful countries, and Britain was definitely one of them, some very successful countries that might want to leave precisely because they are so successful. Places like Netherlands, some of the Scandinavian members, Denmark, for example. And then on the less happy side, there are probably some failures that would like to get out precisely because they're doing so poorly in the current setup. And that's places like Greece and Italy. The really interesting question is you have French and German elections coming up over the course of the next year. And particularly if France votes for a Eurosceptic party, that would be a fundamental change for the European Union. I don't think it could survive the departure or near departure of France.
But you You know what the British people were told, and you cited that earlier, that the sky was falling, it was going to be the start of World War III, the British economy was going to fail, and that's all turned out absolutely false. But that's the same kind of stuff they were talking about Donald Trump as president was going to happen. Talk about the relationship between Trump and Theresa May now.
You know, it seems to be an extremely good relationship. I think, first of all, we should always bear in mind that the relationship between Britain and the United States and between the U.S. and a lot of other countries, it's too big and too important to make it all about personalities, right? I mean, there are big underlying factors here that are beyond whoever the president is right now and beyond whoever the prime minister is right now. But practically speaking, Donald Trump needs Prime Minister May, and Prime Minister May needs Donald Trump. The British need Trump because he's much more enthusiastic about doing a trade deal with Britain than Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton would have been, and because they need geopolitical approval for the process of getting out of the European Union, and Donald Trump is going to provide that. President Trump needs the British because he wants the other members of NATO to spend more money, and the British are almost the only member of NATO right now, apart from ourselves, who are meeting their obligations. So he needs the British to go around to the European powers and say, hey guys, time to stump up some more money. So each side has got something to gain from this relationship, and as a result, Prime Minister May is a Brexit supporter, Donald Trump is a Brexit supporter, so they've got a lot in common.
Talk a little bit about the Labour Party, which is our left here in America, but the Labour Party over there, how are they taking this Brexit? They're kind of between a rock and a hard place, aren't they?
Well, you know, they're really stuck because their support comes from sort of two groups of pretty core. One are people who live in the north of England, who are working class or lower middle class. And these are sort of socialist voters, but there's a long tradition of patriotic socialism in the UK. Some of the Labour ministers who participated in World War II, very socialist, but also very patriotic. And one of the ways they manifested their patriotism was that they didn't want to get involved in anything like the European Union. You know, they wanted to be in charge of their own country, basically. Now, you know, I'm not a big fan of socialism, but at least I respect their patriotism. Well, there are a lot of voters in the north of England who are like that, and they just see the labor movement now becoming incredibly European. So that offends this sort of old-fashioned socialist patriotism. And then you've got the other chunk of the Labour Party, which are quite well-off, metropolitan elite voters. We'd call them limousine liberals. Over there, they're called champagne socialists, who, you know, are all for lots of regulations and high taxes in Europe, because frankly, they're already so well off, it doesn't really matter what happens. So if the Labour Party goes anti-European, it loses the champagne socialists. If it goes pro-European, it loses the voters in the north. So it's being sort of sawed in between these elite and these common man voters, and it doesn't really know which way to turn.
Well, it looks like the Trump-May coalition, if you will, as Trump has been so able to do even before he was inaugurated, Lego is a company that's going to expand over there. How do you see trade between our two countries going forward?
You know, the single most encouraging thing that I've seen is the amount of support that we're getting from the Trump administration to do a free trade area with the British. Now, President Trump has come under a lot of fire for getting rid of TPP, the Pacific deal, but he's been very supportive about a bilateral deal with the British. And that's because the British don't set off any of the alarm bells that were raised with TPP. Britain is not a low-wage country. They're not going to undercut American workers. The British don't cheat. They keep their word. So we don't have to worry about them stealing our intellectual property or anything like that. Our trade with Britain is already very, very balanced. It's balanced to within $1 billion every year. So it's very reciprocal. So there are all sorts of things about the British that make them really good trade partners, even for someone like President Trump, who's signaled he's skeptical about a lot of America's existing trade deals. The British check all the boxes. So when companies like Lego or Apple or Google decide they're wanting to expand in Britain, they're basically giving a vote of confidence to Brexit, to the British economy, to the fact that although Britain isn't as economically free as I would like it to be, it's a lot more economically free than France or Italy is, and that therefore it's a good place to spend and invest and hire people. Well, I think that's the kind of country we should want to trade with.
You know, we're kind of on a hard break again, but give us your closing thoughts. I mean, just the fact that he restored the Winston Churchill bust into the Oval Office, that was a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, it's symbolic, obviously, but symbolism matters. And one of the things that bugged me most about President Obama was that when he was in Britain, he would say nice things about Churchill or the Queen, but you can tell he didn't really mean them. He was only saying it because it was convenient at the time, and as soon as he left, he forgot all about it. I don't expect anyone nowadays to be Winston Churchill, because Winston Churchill was a greater man than anyone who's alive today. But showing some respect for genuinely great leaders in the past is a really good way of indicating that your heart's in the right place. So I applaud the president for restoring the bust to the Oval Office, and I hope it presages better Anglo-American relations than we had under President Obama.
Ted, how can people read your works and support the Heritage Foundation?
Well, you can go very easily online to www.heritage.org. If you search for my last name, we have a spiffy new website just launched 24 hours ago. Search for Bromund, B-R-O-M-U-N-D, in the search box, and you'll find me right there.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the Concerted Commandos radio show. God bless. Thanks so much, Ted.
Thank you.
Well, this is J.D. Manier and Anna Little coming to you live from the Concerted Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet. With American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM/FM 24/7.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the Internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty Health Share. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty Health Share today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and ccrshow.com, or mornings at 8 a.m., Leading Edge Radio Network, and at 11 p.m., High Plains Talk Radio News.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Well, J.D., I'll tell you, that last guest, he really did hit it on the head about Brexit. I wonder, is that about anti-socialism and independence for the British people, or was it about the economics of how that particular EU arrangement was working and the improper burden upon the British people financially? What a big historic change has occurred in June of last year.
Well, I think it's refreshing, and I think it's a little bit of both. Anna, what you brought up, there's a change afoot, and the torch of liberty is coming out of America, and it's starting to spread again to our allies, and that's really good.
I think it's wonderful, and I think, liberty is not ours to hold upon ourselves. We are supposed to be teaching people throughout the world the benefits of living in freedom side by side with your fellow constituents in any particular district, whether it be a local district or a national district, or even being a citizen of the world. And I do think that the agreement country by country has a whole lot more strength, as it's a two-party contract, than to try to create some monstrosity of bureaucracy by the way of a world government, which is what I think liberals and socialists have in mind. So I'm really pleased to see that England is coming along with her ally, the United States of America, and recognizing independence, both financially and politically, benefits her people. And I just think that's what I'm seeing with Brexit.
Well, yes, and Ted pointed out, France, other nations over there could very well, in the next year or two, seek to get out of European Union. And, it's a bureaucracy up there in Brussels. Why should people outside of Belgium, want to live by the laws and regulations of this world body, so to speak? And it's refreshing to witness what's going on. And once again, the naysayers, just like Donald Trump, they said, the economy's going to tank. You're going to have World War III. The sky's falling, like Ted said. Actually, that's not true. It's the exact opposite. Freedom creates energy and expanding economies and greater net worth for the people. And so it's pretty exciting. Anna, are you still with me? That's what I thought. A little bit bad connection, so we'll continue on. I wanted to bring on, and we look forward to Anna joining us here shortly. But I wanted to bring up, Anna, this issue of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Going to hear arguments today on this travel ban. And American people are paying close attention to what's happening here. Judge Robart said, hey, Donald Trump, I've got two states, Minnesota and Washington, and they claim to be representing people, and so I'm going to extend this to all 50 states, and I'm going to stop you. Well, let's take a look at that. U.S. law, written in 1952 and passed by Democrat-controlled Congress and executive branches, controlled by the Democrats back then, it was 8 U.S. Code 1182 they cited. And I'm going to lift a piece of that because I think what Judge Robart did is totally unconstitutional. He's totally off base. And it reads, U.S. Code 1182, whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or of any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, the president may, by proclamation and for such a period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. Anna, are you back? Yeah,
I am back with you, JD, and I am so glad you're talking about this because I have been a bit frustrated in listening to the discussions on this very topic. You know, there's discussion by the liberal left about constitutional law as applied to immigrants. And I just want to make it clear that every human being has a human right. And those human rights are protected under our Constitution for every human being, whether they are a citizen or national of the United States or not. But our constitutional rights, as governing the operation of our government, those rights only belong to U.S. citizens here on this soil. And while even lawful permanent residents may enjoy the benefits of some of those rights, they cannot call on the courts for constitutional rights other than human rights. So we need to make sure that that distinction is made clear. Otherwise, our citizenship has no value. Remember, these liberal left advocates for immigrants, they're looking for a world government. They're looking to weaken the sovereignty of the United States of America. And the United States Constitution does not permit that. Now, as far as the president's rights, they are clear. I think this judge, this activist judge, and he's been exposed as such, given the fact that he does pro bono work in concert with the liberal left. Now, I'm an immigration attorney. I do this work in private practice, and I do represent immigrants. And I will tell you, there are many clients within my office who receive immigration benefits because of my work. But we do so according to the operation of the law, the Immigration and Nationality Act, as it exists. And I'll tell you, this judge, this activist judge, I believe, has tipped his hand in standing up and giving standing to these states, and I think inappropriately so, in putting forward this bar of the executive order by Donald Trump. I think he's really tipped his hand and shown his bias in this particular issue. And the Ninth Circuit tends to lean very liberal also. This may have to be a Supreme Court issue, and getting Neil Gorsuch, getting his appointment confirmed may be very, very important to President Trump.
Well, Anna, and Judge Robart claimed that, no, there has been no arrests or terrorism charges that he could see from the countries Iraq, Iran, Syria, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, and Libya. Well, even Democrat Attorney General Andrew Lugar in 2015 from Minnesota says we have a terror recruitment problem here in Minnesota. He was talking about the Somali refugees in that state, and a number of them had gone off to join ISIS, and they were stopped. So yeah, thank you so much for illuminating us on this. But I'm ready for the Senate to start impeaching off-the-rail judges again. I think that needs to be something implemented up there in Washington that has not really occurred for decades. But when you're that far off the truth, there has to be something to rein in these judges, Anna. What say you?
I agree with you. The judges need to be reminded that their job, the judiciary, is to interpret the law, not to make the law, not to impose your own sense of justice. The very fact that this judge would see fit to analyze foreign policy and determine for himself whether he, as president, would have acted as Donald Trump acted as president, shows that he does not understand his role in the three branches of government, in the balance of power within this government. His role is to interpret the Constitution and the law, not to decide whether President Trump's decisions were ill-advised or well-advised. He cannot stand in the shoes of the president. That is not his place. And I really hope that through the judicial process heading to the Supreme Court, we will be able to constitutionally address this, and hopefully within short order.
Anna, we're coming up on a hard break again. And it's been me and you today. It's been a great show, and it's going by so quick. It always does. But we're coming to you live from the Conservative Commando's Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7.
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
If your health care has become a burden and you're worried about being stuck for another year, you have options. Liberty Health Share could be the solution to your problem. Open enrollment is here and could be your chance to free yourself from insurance. Take this opportunity and join Liberty Health Share. You can finally be in control and have freedom when it comes to your health care. Liberty Health Share offers an entirely open network, which means you choose your doctors and you choose your hospitals. Liberty Health Share offers freedom from insurance, meaning no tax-related penalties. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty Health Share today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237. Or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and J.D. Veneer. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and CCRShow.com. Or mornings at 8 a.m., Leading Edge Radio Network. Or at 11 p.m., High Plains Talk Radio News.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Well, J.D. Veneer, I think our next guest is with us. Will you please introduce?
Well, Claire Lopez is the Vice President for Research and Analysis at the Center for Security Policy. She's a Senior Fellow at the London Center for Policy Research and a member of the Board of Advisors for the Canadian Mackenzie Institute. In 2016, she was named to Senator Ted Cruz's presidential campaign National Security Advisory Team. And since 2013, she has served as a member of the Citizens Commission on Benghazi. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show, Claire.
Hi, J.D. Thanks for having me.
Well, immigration vetting and foreign policy has been a hot topic, and with us today, especially on the show. We have President Trump's 7 banned nations, and they were high on Obama's terrorist list as well. But you have some facts about Pakistan. Our listeners should pay attention to that. We'd like to hear.
Well, we recently saw just this past Saturday, that would be the 4th of February here, 2017, 3 brothers who apparently managed office information technology for various members of the House in Congress were fired. Apparently on suspicion that they accessed congressional computers without permission. That means they were into accounts where they shouldn't have been. And some of those committees that they served, they worked for different ones. They were what's called shared employees among a number of different committees. Some of those committees were pretty important. Foreign Affairs, Intelligence, and Homeland Security. So these 3 brothers named Abid, Imran, and Jamal Awan have not been charged legally or indicted by law enforcement, but the article that broke this news, which was in the Daily Caller this past Saturday, as I said, the 4th of February, did say that the investigation had been ongoing into what these guys had been up to since last year, later in the year of 2016. So it seems that this has been going on for quite a while, and I don't think that we've heard the last of the case. And the important thing here, to get back to your question, roundabout way there, J.D., is that the name, the family name of these 3 brothers does indicate a family background in the Punjab region of Pakistan, that is an area up close to the Afghan border. Now, we don't know if these 3 young men, all in their early 20s, were immigrants themselves. We don't know if they're citizens or whether perhaps it is their parents' generation that may have immigrated from abroad to the United States. But the point being here that the family background is definitely Pakistani.
Well, Claire, actually one of them, I was reading the Daily Caller article yesterday, a guy named Imran. He actually worked for the guy I've been running against in Congress, Andre Carson, here in Indiana's 7th District, and he's on the House Intelligence Committee. But I was reading the article, and it points out, I mean, they were paid 3 times as much money as typically you're paid for a 21, 22-year-old person. They're getting $160,000 a year. There was issues with bankruptcy, and this needs strong investigation. Take it from there, but it doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't, and I don't think we've heard the last of the case, as I said, but this gets to a broader question, and this is government-wide, not just in Congress, but across the U.S. government. In recent years, I think there has been a failure to maintain good counterintelligence training and awareness and measures that would have, for instance, investigated, done background investigations on these 3 brothers in such a way that might have avoided their being hired in the first place, or getting access to such an important information, not just what they were given legal access to, but rather what they also hacked into, where they went without permission. And you mentioned Andre Carson, of course, with all kinds of Muslim Brotherhood connections, sitting on the House Intelligence Committee, the HPSI as it's sometimes called, House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. But that CI awareness is what I'm getting at here. And the U.S. government across the board, agencies, departments, I think need to reinvigorate the training and the focus on counterintelligence to really preclude to avoid problems like this before they have a chance to start.
You mentioned the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, the other nations across the pond, they label them as a terrorist organization. What say you here in America? What should the Trump administration be doing?
Well, the United States has what it's called a foreign terrorist organizations list. It is maintained by the State Department, which has sole responsibility for placing a group on it, although a president can order a group to be put on that list. Congress can take a group off the foreign terrorist organization list, but not put one on. Congress can also, as we see now, propose bills that urge the president or an administration, State Department, to put a group or to take a group off of that list. There are 3 criteria to be on the list. You have to be a foreign-based organization. You have to have actually committed terrorist acts or an act or more that threatened U.S. national security. Terrorism under U.S. law is defined as violence and only violence. And number 3, must retain the capability and the intent to commit acts of terrorism that threaten U.S. national security. So with those criteria in mind, Congress and the State Department and the Trump administration will have to decide if the Muslim Brotherhood here in the United States actually meets all 3 of those criteria.
Claire, we are coming up against a hard commercial break. Can you just hold with us for a couple minutes? We want to bring you right back.
Sure.
This is J.D. Manier and your host, Anna Little, coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7, all.com.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, check out our website, CCRS Network and ccrshow.com. Mornings at 8 a.m., Leading Edge Radio Network, and 11 p.m., High Plains Talk Radio News.com. And don't forget, you can listen anytime, any day, from any phone at 832-999-1199. We're speaking this segment with Claire Lopez, Vice President for Research and Analysis at the Center for Security Policy and a Senior Fellow at the London Center for Policy Research. Claire, thank you so much for waiting to that break. We do appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. I'm always happy to be with you.
We really enjoy you. But Claire, you've got a very important topic, and I've got a rather pointed question for you. I believe we are involved worldwide in a war on terror. And I think it should be more than just the United States, but we only have control over the United States. We've got terrorist actors on our nation's soil. Some of them are U.S. citizens, some of them are not. Can we not identify these individuals and treat them, perhaps through the criminal courts, perhaps through the courts that we use for enemy combatants? Talk to me about this issue, because we've got to move forward lest we fall back.
Well, the one thing I would point out here is that we are not fighting terrorism. We've got to stop getting hung up on terrorism. This is not about terrorism. We fight to live free of Islamic law. We are fighting against the forces of jihad that seek to impose a different alien, hostile legal system on the United States and the world, indeed, the entire world, and it's called Sharia. So let's forget about terrorism. It must be taken care of. It must be met. It must be stopped. Absolutely. But that's not the danger to the United States. Terrorism can never bring down this republic of ours, but subversion can. And this is where the point is about the Muslim Brotherhood and its various front groups operating here in the United States. They don't commit terrorism. What they do commit is material support to terrorism. That's a different law. Sedition, conspiracy to commit those crimes. And I think also a case could be made for applying RICO statutes, that is criminal conspiracy laws to what's going on. But the most important thing to understand is that the operatives of the Muslim Brotherhood and operating through a plethora, thousands really, but several dozen major principal front groups in this country are working in a subversive way within the pillars of support of our society, as I would call them. And that means in academia, in government for sure, in our intelligence community, and in media, and throughout society as a whole. They take particular care to target faith communities through interfaith dialogue arrangements and activities, and they also take particular aim at our law enforcement officers, police departments, sheriff's departments, to co-opt them into collaborating with them such that we are being destroyed from within, according to what the Muslim Brotherhood's own explanatory memorandum says. Destroy the Western civilization from within, sabotage its miserable house by their hands, meaning we'll do it to ourselves. So this has nothing to do with terrorism. This has to do with infiltration, information operations, and subversion within our society to soften us to the ultimate objective of theirs to impose Sharia Islamic law.
Now, we've been discussing Sharia for a number of years now, and it seems that whenever we start to expose Sharia, we get the retort back, don't discriminate on religion. Can you talk to us about the difference between a religion and this subversion that you've just described?
Good distinction, absolutely. Well, when the Founding Fathers wrote our Constitution and the Bill of Rights, in particular the First Amendment to the to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they had a particular definition of religion when they included that freedom within the First Amendment rights. And that definition of religion means prayer and worship, devotion, diet and fasting rules, pilgrimage, proselytizing. All of that is 100% covered under the First Amendment. Anyone of any faith who sticks to those activities is 100% covered by the First Amendment, no question. Step outside of that, and you talk about changing or supplanting the U.S. Constitution with some other legal system like Sharia, like Islamic law, and you have now run into the territory covered by Article 6 of the Constitution, which says that the supreme law of the land in the United States shall be the Constitution and the laws derived from it. So there is no discrimination on religious grounds. Forget about that. That's not what it's about. It's about a legal system that is contrary to the Constitution. That's what we seek to stop. We do not want to be forced to live under that. People who want to live under that, well, there are loads of places around the world where they can have that opportunity, but just not in the United States.
Claire Lopez, you make it sound so clear. I'm so glad you joined us today. JB, I'm going to give you back your guest because time is flying by.
Well, Claire, just point out, you know, this coalition of the left and these Sharia-supporting Muslim groups. And then you brought up RICO, and I think of all the subversion going on funded by George Soros. Kind of tie all that in together for our audience.
Yeah. Well, what we're looking at, and I'm sure people have noticed the chaos in our society, on our streets, on our campuses, university campuses. And there is what we call here at the Center for Security Policy a red-green axis. Indeed, we have published a book called The Red-Green Axis by Jim Simpson. And more broadly, we've addressed it and teach it in various venues, including to local law enforcement around the country. And what the red-green axis is a collaboration among the Muslim Brotherhood in America, the Black Lives Matter movement, and a motley collection of what might be called Saul Alinsky anarchists. They include Communist Party USA, Socialists of the USA, MoveOn.org, Occupy Wall Street, and those sorts of groups. And although their foundational ideologies are really quite different, as anybody would point out immediately, for the purpose of tearing down our society taking aim at our legal system. Here we go again. Our legal system, our law and order is the target for all of them. That brings them together. They're willing to collaborate for the time being to accomplish that goal, and I guess they'll settle things among themselves later on.
Claire, I'm going to pivot a little bit because you're an expert on Iran, and that's been a hot-button issue here recently with Trump and the missile testing that they keep doing over there. Talk about that, please.
Right. So we saw just within the past week that the Trump administration has imposed, through the Treasury Department, some new sanctions against Iranian individuals and entities, particularly as they are involved in procurement activities for Iran's ballistic missile systems programs. And what we've seen since the July 2015 conclusion of what's called the JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or nuclear deal with Iran, are repeated tests by Iran of its ballistic missiles. Now, there is only one purpose for ballistic missiles. It is to carry a WMD payload. That would be most probably nuclear, although it could carry chemical or biological. But the point is, the only purpose for a ballistic missile is to carry an offensive warhead with a WMD payload. The Iranians have repeatedly tested more than a dozen times since the summer of 2015, and their missile technology procurement networks are the ones targeted by the most recent sanctions. Now, people will say, well, ballistic missiles weren't really covered under the nuke deal, the JCPOA, and that is true. They were deliberately left out of that deal by the Obama administration. But the United Nations Security Council has at least a couple of resolutions out there. One from June of 2010 called Resolution 1929, but one much more recently, Resolution 2231, passed in 2015. Again, this is by the United Nations Security Council, which contains language that might be called a little bit weak, I would call it that, but it says that they call upon Iran to refrain from any activity related to ballistic missiles designed to carry nuclear weapons. So that's a little bit weak wording, but it's out there. And it's in a United Nations Security Council resolution. And at least in the spirit of that resolution and others previous, Iran is violating them on a consistent basis. So that is why the Treasury Department slapped new sanctions on Iran this past week.
Claire, we're coming up against a hard break. It's been so good having you on the show. How can they read your works and support the Center for Security Policy, real quick?
Well, please have a look at the centerforsecuritypolicy.org, or you can also just check out securefreedom.org. It'll take you to the same place. Have a look at our publications, our articles, occasional papers, and monographs, all listed there, and many of them in free PDF download if you'd like to look at them that way.
Thank you for coming on the show, and God bless, Claire. Thanks again.
Thanks, J.D. Thank you, Anna. Okay, bye-bye.
Anna, take us out of here.
Okay, J.D., as our producer Rick Trader would say, we're out of time. We got to go. We want to thank our guests. Thanks, J.D. Thanks to John Forsyth on the board. But we've got to run. We've got to go. So take care. God bless, and we'll see you tomorrow on the radio.
1360 AM. WNJC. Washington Township, Philadelphia.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.